Um, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I've got some more people to watch here if they're going to join us because we had 19 people sign up, so we're missing a few folks. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Nancy Regelsberger, and I am the financial and consumer educator in Cornell Cooperative Extension in Steuben County. And for those of you who might be virtually far away, Steuben County is up by Corning and Rochester area of the state. So last week we did a presentation on Clear the Clutter. Some of you may have joined us last week. So this is the second program in the series of this, and we wanted to talk about, were there questions, if anybody was on last week and had some questions that we didn't cover. But tonight I am so pleased and privileged that we're joining with Lisa Zawrotny. And Lisa is the CEO and founder of Positively Productive Systems. Now, Lisa did a program for us, gosh, was it in February? It seems like eons ago, like the world is so different already. So Lisa did a program for us in our lecture series, All on Clutter, and it was super well attended and a wonderful program. So I asked her if she could share some of that with us tonight, and she agreed. So thank you, Lisa. And then we will open it up to kind of a conversation. So right now, what I'm going to try to do, so I want to ask everybody for some patience. I'm going to try something new. This is my first time in doing polls. So I'm going to throw some polls out there and see if you guys can answer them. I hope this works. And then we will turn it over to Lisa to do her thing, and then we can just share. And certainly if you have questions, you can type them in the chat box, and make sure that when you type it in the chat box that you type it to everyone so that I can see them, and then I can certainly stop Lisa and share the question with her. So hopefully everybody can hear us. Right now everybody's muted. So let me try this poll, and I hope I can make this work. Can you see that or no?
Yes.
Yes.
You can see the poll?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, this is my first time doing this, so I'm hoping that it's working. All right. So if you can answer the question, I think you just hit your response.
By physical, do you mean paper?
Nope. Paper. Oh, peepers. Look at, I got peepers spelled wrong. Papers is down below under papers.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say physical is like just boxes and stuff, memorabilia and collections and, all those kind of things.
Tangible items.
Tangible, thank you. So are people able to vote? Yep, okay. 3.
I'm voting.
Okay.
Hey, I'm not immune, so.
Okay, only 33 have voted, 33% have voted, so.
Mine won't let me submit.
It won't?
Let me
Bummer.
try. You pick something different. Let's see. Nope.
Mine either. I'm submitting, but it's doing nothing.
Oh, wait, there's a second. Oh, wait, you got to
was about
scroll
to say
down. There's
scroll
3.
down.
That's
Yeah,
why.
it may
Okay.
not-
Yep, there's 3.
Gotcha. Okay, so hold on.
Yep, there's
Great.
3.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Oh, these are some beautiful photos, Nancy.
There we go.
Okay, 10 out of 12, okay. So can everybody submit now? All right, so that's, oh great, 91%, all righty. So let's see what the results say. I'm gonna end polling. So can you see the results? You can't see the results?
Nope.
No.
No.
Now
Oh,
we
wait.
can.
Now we can.
Now you can. Okay.
Okay.
See, this is
Little
new for
delay.
me. Thank you for being patient.
That's okay.
Okay. So it looks like the first question, what are your biggest concerns around clutter, your biggest concern? And 58% said physical. Wow. 25 digital and 17 peepers. That's interesting. So physical clutter, big one. Okay. So regarding physical clutter, which area is of biggest concern? So, wow, 50% said other.
I bet I have a guess.
Wow. So closed closet was a big one, 17. Bedroom, kitchen, that's not a surprise. Nobody has attic issues or garage issues. That really surprises me. Okay, so I wonder what the others are.
Is it papers, office? Is that anyone?
You can unmute.
Or we'll check the chat.
Okay. And then what issue is biggest struggle for you in your clutter? Not sure what to do with stuff is the winner. Wow, 33%. Emotional attachment and procrastination right behind that. Don't know where to start. Okay, good. And some time. That time is a big one as well. Okay, so thank you everybody for taking a minute to do that with me. I was hoping to kind of get a feel for what people were looking at as their biggest concerns. So, all right, stop sharing. All right, so let's see here. Computer, Zoom, cloud meeting, meeting controls. Uh-oh. I lost it. Hold on. I lost you guys. Okay. Now I have to, I can't find my log in. Do I have to log in again?
We still see you. We can still
You
hear
do?
you. At least I can.
Okay, but I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen now. I lost it after the poll.
I feel like you're still sharing your screen.
Yeah, we can still see your
Yeah,
screen.
because we still see the Cornell and everything up there. I think it was the poll in addition to that. So,
Okay, but I'm trying to see how to get out of there.
all right. Do you
See what-
have at the very bottom, like if you go to the,
Yeah, there's nothing there. That's why I'm trying to figure out. I feel this, oh no, I don't want to, oh no, I don't want to end the meeting. Sorry. Oh, it went to the top. There it is.
if you go to view options, do you have an option to stop sharing or something like that?
Yeah, where's my stop share?
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, but now Lisa, you can take over.
All right, let's see if it'll let me share. And by the way, a couple of you said the other equals everywhere. So we're pretty much across the board. Okay. Let's see. Now, last week, Nancy did a phenomenal job going over clutter and how to reduce it. And she and I actually have quite a bit of overlap when it comes to our clutter approach. So I just grabbed the same, well, essentially a shorter version of the same presentation that I did. Let me see if I can.
So I'm going to ask everybody to mute themselves right now while Lisa talks.
All right, so Nancy already started with the poll, which is great. You know, what do you want to declutter? And it looks like mostly the physical, but there are other aspects of clutter that we want to consider, and they all play together. They reflect on each other. And one of the best ways to start is with the physical clutter, but keeping in mind that sometimes you have to move back and forth. So that's what brought you here. What brought me here, just to let you all know, was I had my own period of time with a tremendous amount of chaos and clutter in my life. I was a caregiver to my mom, who's pictured with me on the right. And I just found a tremendous amount of healing for my whole family after we went through such a difficult time together, through simplicity, through decluttering inside and out. And I essentially, I came across this idea that there are really two paths, and we need to pay attention to the inside and the outside because they affect each other. They play off of each other constantly. You can help one heal when you tackle the other one, which is really encouraging. So you must know how that feels, right? When you clean out a closet and you're suddenly, it's a closet, but you breathe easier. Yes. Do you walk by it and and just, you feel better? And sometimes I'll actually go to the closet and open it up and look at it. Maybe that's just me. Anyhow, here's why I'm talking about this and what my expertise is. I put in coffee lover because I thought that was important, but I was a caregiver to my mom. I am a wife and mom of two awesome kids who are now at home with me. And so now I'm a school administrator. So, but here is my favorite quote that I want to share with you about thinking in terms of clutter. We do think physical clutter first, I think, but clutter is not just the stuff on your floor. It's anything that stands between you and the life you want to be living. So let's think about types of clutter. Physical spaces, yes, the physical items, the tangible items, but also mental and digital. And those were listed on the poll, so I'm glad that some of you did mention those. And there's overlap with them too. Tasks and the information that come in are also part of the potential clutter that we have. And these are the things that can play into why we procrastinate, why we don't have maybe feeling like we don't have enough time to tackle the clutter. Or it could even play into the emotional side, simply not knowing what to do with things. And I'm going to let Nancy let me know if there's anything in the chat box, but feel free to make comments or ask questions as we go. I'll keep going through the presentation, and when we get to a point where you'd
Yep,
like to
if I
go.
see anything good, I'll stop you, Lisa, but thank you.
Great. Okay. So talking physical clutter, some stats just for the US alone, a year of our lives searching for misplaced items, and I'm pretty sure that might be conservative. A quarter of Americans with a 2-car garage, no room for a car. 10% rent external storage. I'd be curious to know how many of you have to deal with external storage, or if, again, the garage or the attic is part of it. Late fees. I mean, when we can't find things, we lose time and we lose money. The clutter stress connection. It overwhelms and distracts us. You know the feeling when you have, and this is especially true for the physical, where you are walking by it because it's tangible. You have a pile of papers on your desk, or you have a number of boxes that you need to go through that you have to walk around, or you pass by on your way somewhere. Those things are not only jobs to do, but they're a constant signal of unfinished work. They can trigger guilt. They reduce productivity simply because they are an energy drain. And they can block self-care and healthy habits. I mean, that's the idea of having, let's say, a kitchen that is not really functioning because you have too much stuff. You cannot get to the items that you need to cook yourself a good meal. What's the first thing we do? Maybe, get on the phone and call for takeout, right? I mean, you have to do something in the moment. And when you are physically blocked, when you can't find something, when you don't have space on the floor to maybe try a workout video at home.
So, excuse me a minute,
Yeah.
Lisa. Somebody's
Please.
commenting that they're hearing a whistling, beeping sound.
All right.
So, I'm not sure. I think, is everybody else muted except her?
Yes, I hear it. And yes, everybody else is muted.
Okay. You know what I might do? I'll try a different headset just to be sure. So give me one moment.
I like the sign on the wall behind you, Lisa.
Thank you. That is my mantra.
Okay, they said, I think it went away, it just stopped.
Okay, I'm going to try plugging in this headset, see if we get a better quality.
Better, guys?
Can you guys hear me now?
Much better.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yep.
Oh, you're welcome. This is my good one. I guess I should have started with that, but I was being all casual. So, all right. So, it blocks us. It blocks us from those healthy habits that we want to create. And a big part of that is when you are creating habits, you want to start as simply as possible, and you don't want things to be in your way. And unfortunately, clutter does that. Overall, it just promotes feeling dissatisfied. But the converse of clutter, the decluttering part, is the encouraging part here. It will save you money and time. I love this second one, 40% reduction in house cleaning. If you think about going to a hotel and how minimal that room is. And a big part of that, I mean, not only because they are trying to keep it very calm and inviting and peaceful. I mean, that simplified space is serene, but it's also really, really easy to clean. You can go through, you don't have to be picking up things, and just it reduces your time for many tasks, but cleaning is specifically one of them. And again, the converse of reducing your productivity and energy, it will increase your productivity. You're finding things easier, you're moving quickly, and you're also more encouraged to do the things. And both of those are a really important part of our productivity. Sometimes we think in terms of time, but I also like to think in terms of our energy. Our energy management is as important as our time management, and this all plays into it. And of course, it reduces our stress and overwhelm for all of these reasons, and we can take better care of ourselves. And when we take better care of ourselves, we show up better. So some basics, there are a number of reasons, but keep these in mind. One of the simplest ways to think of clutter is deferred decisions. And does that resonate with everyone? Give me a yay or nay, a nod, okay. Incomplete task loops, that's the kind of clutter that comes from you'll put it away later. You'll get to it later, it can wait, or you'll just set it there instead. And that can also play a part when you have too much stuff. Has this ever happened to you? Where you have too much stuff and you can get to something in that closet. Let's say you got 4 bins stacked and you get to the one in the bottom and you take it out and you use it, no problem, I got to it. But then when you go to put it back, what are the odds it gets all the way to that bottom bin? So then that's where clutter starts to compound again. Mismanaged consumption comes from the fact that you can't find something because of the clutter. And now, what do often, especially when it's something little? You buy again. And then fear and worry. That can be along the emotional side of things. It can be the fear of losing out on something valuable, of not being able to replace something that you might need it again, all of those things. So the next question is, how do you declutter? And I'm curious, have you been trying to declutter either now or recently? And if so, has anything specifically worked for you? I'd love to know if you want to share in the comments or unmute yourself.
I have started to declutter, and I just tackled one small area at a time. I set my mind to a pile of paper, and given this time being home every day, I can tackle a different pile. So for me, it was always time.
Mm-hmm.
A single mom, and I was always on the go, and I'm a 4-H educator, and so it's always, go for everybody else. And I just, like you said, that'll wait, or that can, there was always a procrastination of I'll get to that later. But
Sure.
yeah,
That's
so
wonderful. Yeah.
small. I tackled small.
And I love that. And that's something that I'll mention at the very end too. You know, if you have the time and the energy and the ability to go for a big project, great, but this can also be done in small chunks as well. And really having that time, there's a sliding scale of priorities that happens here all the time, where you know, ultimately we have, you know, limited time in the day, limited amount of energy, and we put other things ahead. What we're trying to, Nancy and I are really trying to encourage here is that we understand that, but at the same time, you will find you will get back much of that energy as you go to tackle this. I missed the name of who was just speaking, but I'm curious, have you been feeling better even with some of these smaller piles that you've been tackling? Has it made a difference?
Oh, yes. It gives
Good.
me more energy because then there's, you know, it gives me a little bit of a spot as I declutter something
Mhm.
else to, you know, spread a little bit. But yes, I don't feel so enclosed, very claustrophobic. So it's much
Good.
better.
Okay, that's awesome. Congratulations. And that's the kind of thing, I always think of decluttering as like muscle building. So when you first start, it can be challenging. It can be challenging because there's a lot of it that you haven't gotten to yet, because it's been a while since you've done it, because it's a lot of decisions, and decision fatigue is a real thing. But as you do it, you get better and better. And as you do it, you build momentum and excitement. And suddenly you're tossing, no, but you can really be in the moment and you can start feeling that difference. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
So
So
Lisa, in the chat box,
yeah,
Samantha said, I watched Marie Kondo and I've used some of her lessons.
excellent. I love that we brought up Marie Kondo because that's like a tradition for me. And I think for Nancy too.
Yeah.
We always have to bring up Marie. And what I love about her is that she comes up with a very simple, what will show you in a minute is what I call a filter. She says, does it spark joy? And she has a certain order in which she suggests to do things. And most of the clients that I work with, that helped a little bit, but it didn't fully work, and we'll go over why. But it's a wonderful place to start, and I think it encourages, again, taking simple steps, and that's all this really is. You can do a lot. Small steps can create big effects. Now,
Um,
speaking of, oh yeah, go ahead,
Yep,
Nancy.
so I just wanted to interject, you know, given the situation that everyone is in now with the COVID, um, you know, distancing and people being people being stuck at home, so many people, when I reach out to them and say, how, what have you been doing? Hi, what's going on? And they're like, oh, I've been cleaning, I've been decluttering. And I think that this is kind of forcing some people to look at their living space and to make some decisions and maybe do the starting. So this is actually, I think, probably a good time for people to maybe attack, even like you say, a small room, a drawer, a closet, a room, something small, just, you know, while you're there. And hey, you got time to kill, it's a good time to get started.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I agree that the more time that we're spending in our homes, the more I think we can have fresh eyes. If you are extremely busy, and sometimes having a huge schedule, like I talked about with types of clutter, tasks, and that includes your schedule and your calendar. If you are so busy that you are not in your house much, you are not going to see or maybe feel as affected by the clutter. You may be affected in, you know, some of the areas that we talked about, like how long it takes you to find things, and you know how maybe your habits might be affected, but in terms of living with it, you're walking away from it frequently. And now we're in a situation where we're not walking away from it, and on top of that, I think what's compounded things, it's not only that we're home, it's that everyone in our household is home. And I don't know who all has multiple people. I happen to be home with multiple people. I run my own business. My husband is working from home. We, you know, there are a lot of little places that we've carved out. There are areas that now have a different kind of purpose. So the simple system that I'm about to talk about will actually cover a lot of these elements. So just keep that in mind. You're under, it's a different, it's it's a different world right now. And so keeping that in mind, giving yourself some grace, but also knowing and being encouraged to take some steps when you leave tonight. it will make a huge, huge difference for you. So the simple system I came up with was actually a way in which for you to create the system that works for you. It's like the steps or the process of it, but you're going to be making the choices, and that is so critical. Decluttering is not about getting rid of things. It's about making space for what matters to you. And so that means making some initial decisions about what matters to you, what you're trying to accomplish. And when you make those decisions, it's going to be so much simpler for you to decide what belongs and what doesn't. So SIMPLE, let's start with S. For set. This is the preparation and scheduling time. Part of it is being here tonight. You're setting yourself up for success. The first thing you've done is decide. There's a reason why you said, I want to chat with people about clutter tonight. Let's do this. And now you're doing that. So the next thing you'll want to do is schedule times. Now, I wrote pickups. This is in the case of, opportunities where you could have somebody pick things up. Obviously, we are using extreme caution now with social distancing, but at the very least, you can set up the times in which you're going to sort through things. You can set up a space where you're going to keep boxes temporarily until you can figure out where to donate them. The key thing right now with decluttering, especially now, is to take things that don't belong in what I call the prime real estate of your life, the immediate areas where you are trying to work and create and live, and make sure that those items that don't belong there, that are truly cluttering up, that are getting in between you and the life you want to live, like the Peter Walsh quote, if you remove those. Now, they may not be completely removed from your property. At this point, that has to be figured out, but this is still a good first step. Documenting the process is something I always encourage as part of this whole thing, and I want to mention it now while you're setting it up. Take pictures. Take pictures of the piles, or sometimes in the case of papers, you can take pictures of the garbage bags you filled, or the amount of shredding that you've amassed. Something that shows you where you were, where you started, and where you've gone. And this is especially important when you have multiple steps in your project, when you have quite a bit to do, when you're going to, each time you go through a phase, or maybe you only have a day to work with or a couple hours to work with. You want to encourage yourself along the process. So make sure that you see where you started. It's very easy for us to forget. When we look at a clean space, an organized space, a decluttered space, we can sometimes forget just how much was there. And make sure you have the tools for the job. When you say, I'm going to declutter this closet, make sure you have some kind of box or container, laundry basket, cardboard box, it doesn't matter what it is, garbage bags, maybe some Post-its or some paper, to make some notes. Make sure that you're ready to do the job, because it's too easy for us to say, oh, well, I don't have what I need. I will go see what's on TV. Now, step 2 of simple, identify. This is the really big one. And I talked about creating a filter for your decisions and how Marie Kondo's is, does it spark joy? Well, there's more to it than even that. I think that's one of them, but you want to think in terms of purpose, values, dreams, goals, intentions. In a very simple way, we could think of a space when you walk into a bedroom or you walk into a kitchen. What am I using this room for? What is the purpose? But there's more to it than that. Maybe it's not simply a kitchen where I'm cooking, but it's also a kitchen where we're eating, and not just eating, but the family is eating together. Or maybe I'm going to finally start learning how to decorate cakes. I mean, everybody's baking right now, right? Thinking in terms of what do you want to create? What do you want to achieve? When you know what you're using that room for, what you're using that space for. And it's not just rooms, this is space in your calendar, space in your head, everywhere. If you know what that space is intended for, you can decide much more readily what belongs and what doesn't. Does that make sense so far? Any questions or any comments? Oh, I'll also add that this is the place in which you may have to decide temporarily that there's a space that has to be multi-use. I'm in a temporary situation where I have a bedroom where normally I wouldn't necessarily want to have my office in it, but I do. So again, you know what the purpose is, you can make a choice as to what belongs. All right, any chat comments or questions, Nancy?
Yep. So
Okay.
any tips for getting ready more easily? I get stuck at that part. It almost takes me longer to find bins, note paper, choose an area to work on than the decluttering. Then I'm out of time. How to decide faster?
Okay, so you're saying getting these tools together. For starters, one of the things I highly recommend, if you have a little basket of some kind that you can throw in some markers and scissors and Post-its and stuff like that, and just have a decluttering kit ready to go, that, you know, and then you just tuck that in the closet and you pull that back out. But even if you have, you grab the nearest basket and some garbage bags, that's a place to start. The biggest thing that I mentioned, like with the markers and the Post-its and stuff, is, or even like a little dedicated notepad or something, is to help keep track. Because the one thing you don't want to do is dig into a project and then have everything all over the place and you're not finished with it and you have to leave it. And then it basically feels like it was worse than when you started. I think I see another comment flashing.
Says thanks.
Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We can address that more. All right, so the next thing is a very classic professional organizer approach that I highly recommend. This is so important because frequently people will go to one space to declutter, and it's fine that you do that, but in terms of making decisions on the clutter as a whole, it's important that you know what the big picture is. You're capturing like with like, and you're figuring out what the categories are for you. We'll use books as an example. You may have a section of books in a bedroom, but you may also have books in a kitchen. You may also have books in a living room. You have a choice. You can go by categories and declutter that way. But let's say in the case of shoes, you want to make sure you have all of your shoes, because you may have shoes in the closet and you may have shoes by the door and you may have some in your car. I don't know. And I'm not judging, by the way, but making sure that you bring everything together like with like, that you know exactly how many spatulas you have in the kitchen. And you make the choice. There's no right or wrong. It's what's right for you. Do you cook a great deal? Do you bake versus sauteing? Do you need things that go to high degrees? You may need more spatulas than most. Cooking spatulas versus pancake spatulas. These are the choices that you need to make, but bringing together that big picture, seeing the big picture, will make your choices more effective. Then we have SIMP. P is for pair, and this is the fourth step in the simple system, but actually where the decluttering that you recognize comes into place. Using your filters that you've decided, what's the purpose? How am I living? What are my dreams? What are my values? And deciding, I'm looking at the big picture. I have all these items in front of me. Can I reduce? Are there redundancies? Are there things that are broken? Can I relocate things that are seasonal? I talked before about things right in your prime real estate, where you're living, where you're trying to, get ready for work or do a particular project or help your children or whatever it is. Making sure that you have that space, that it captures what you need in that space and not other things that you may only need 6 months from now. So I talk about seasonal items, thinking in terms of that. So again, it doesn't always mean that you let it go completely, but you do remove it from that space. Is there a place to relocate it? And then in the case of relocating from a time or calendar schedule approach, that would be deferring it. Maybe there's a project that you have in mind, but it doesn't make any sense now. A lot of times we get into this habit of keeping papers or keeping things relating to something we don't want to forget right out in the open visually. I don't know if that rings any bells with anyone, but finding a different way to store that information. Maybe setting time on your calendar 6 months from now to revisit that project. Say, I can't do it now, but I can do it later. Then you're deferring it, you're decluttering it out of your current space. Do it, delegate it, dump it. It's just one of my favorite sayings to quickly say, I have tasks, or I have something that needs to be done. If you can do it in 2 to 5 minutes, do it now. If it's hanging on and it really needs to be done, think about how you can delegate it. And one of my favorites I'd like to share with you tonight is when you're looking at a task list and you really want to declutter that, please think, how can it get done? And I want you to think about how I didn't say, how can I do this? How can it get done? It's not always up to you. And obviously, if something's there and it's just not making sense anymore, it's not making sense for now, it'll probably come back at some point. Dump it. Just let it go. And the 80-20 principle, I just have to bring up all the time because it's my favorite. 80% of where we want to go, of our results, come from 20% of our efforts. 80% of what we wear probably comes from 20% of our closet. So that's a good way to think about what's the 20% of my closet that I wear almost all the time. And you can use that as like a reverse decluttering tactic. What are your favorites? And Nancy mentioned this last week, the hanger trick, where you take your hangers at some point, flip them all around, and then from that calendar point, frequently it's the new year, but this can be the new year, new you right now, mid-April, turn those hangers around, and then as you start to wear things, flip the hangers back over and you can start to see just how much you've worn certain clothing, and you might see the 80-20 at work. The L in simple is for limit, and it seems like pare down, but it's actually something different because now you have to honor the container. And a container can be literally, if you have a bin that belongs in a closet, that container is all you can fit a certain amount of items in. It could be the container of your house. If you have a bigger farmhouse, you may have some more flexibility. If your container could be the amount of time you have in the day or the amount of energy you have to do things. So you want to consider your container. You may have reduced quite a bit already, but your decluttering might need some additional depending upon the container you have. Time constraints, I mentioned buffer. We frequently look at containers as though we can fill them all the way up, and that is not always the case, especially with our time. Just like you need to be able to fit a container into an organizer or a closet or a space or a room, and you need to be able to have the space to walk around it and to pick it up and to move it. It's the same thing with your time and your schedule on your calendar. You need that buffer, you need that white space, and I call it breathing space. All right, and last but not least, both the ending and the beginning, because this is a repeat cycle, is to evaluate. Repeating the process, preventing the clutter as it comes in. I'm distracted by a kitty cat. I like your kitty. I have one sleeping on the other side here. She's being very good for this presentation. Trying the system, trying decluttering one space and saying, okay, what worked, what didn't? What can I anticipate that's coming in again? What can I prevent? How can I be selective in terms of what I'm purchasing? Also, how can I structure my habits, to make sure that I'm taking the items that I now have here that work and I'm putting them back. So there's a combination of things happening there. It's closing that task loop. You take out items, you use them, you put them back. How easy was it to put back? I'll tell you, the easiest way to put things back, or the way in which putting things back is the easiest, is when you have fewer things. It's so easy to organize when you have fewer things. That's where the decluttering comes in. And this is last but absolutely not least, is celebrating. Celebrating those piles of paper that you've already decluttered, celebrating that you're here tonight and that you have something in mind. I know you do, and I'd be curious which space you want to clutter or declutter first. Celebrating every step that you take, every choice that you make a decision that you make, one of those deferred decisions that you finally decide to tackle. And really, tonight, all Nancy and I would love to see you do is to just start. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small, but start. And you can start with a challenge, like a place that's just been driving you crazy. And boy, what a difference that would make. What would the outcome be if you tackled it finally? Or if you're like, wow, that just seems like too much work, go for the simple win. That's okay too, because they both get you to where you want to be. Invite others with you, buddies, or anyone. Feel free to message me. I will cheer you on like crazy with what you're doing. Helpers, if you have anybody willing, and deciders. And I put that there because sometimes it's your clutter and sometimes it's someone else's. And I would be curious, anyone dealing with someone else's clutter, you have to be careful with that. The more that you can engage people, the better. The more that you can let them know, this is what you're doing, this is what's important to you, this is what's going to reduce your stress and really be good for your mental health, the more they can at least be supportive of it. Paper is its own project, and we can talk about that with the time that we have if you need to. So as you are decluttering in any particular space, it's very, very simple to like pick up a piece of paper and be distracted and start reading, and an hour later you're still holding the paper. So make sure you have an extra bin or an extra, even a stack. It doesn't matter. It could be the couch, or it could be a bed or a chair. I'm just going to stack paper there, and then you can put paper in a different bin for its own decluttering project. Trust me, you'll thank me. Repeating the steps. This is not a one and done thing. Keep doing it. Be encouraged by that. It's like peeling the layers of an onion. You'll get better and better. And when I said create habits as you declutter, I did mention that before, that it's not one of those, well, I'm going to declutter this first and then I'll figure out what I'm doing. Think about how you're moving through your space, how you take things out, how you put things away, the time that you have. Think about how you move through your day and how you interact with your things and the purpose of your space. As you do that, you can come up with the habit that makes the most sense. I'll give you an example. In our former house, we had our mail bin, a basket dedicated for our mail that would come in. So no matter who picked up the mail, it would go in that basket. That was in our living room, and it sounds odd, but it was based on how we came into the house and how we came down our hallway and where we would pass by, because everybody would come down the hallway and head into the kitchen. And so that was a path. It was how we lived. And so we had the basket right there on the way. There's no right or wrong here, only right for you. So that is where I'm going to hold off to say, if anyone wants to bring a specific challenge that they have or something that I can answer from a custom standpoint, I'd be happy to do it.
You can either unmute yourselves, guys, or in chat, or you can write it in the chat, whichever you prefer.
I unmuted myself. My question is about paperwork, specifically the length of time to keep specifics.
Okay.
How long do we keep Bill? You know what I mean? That, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. So for starters, Google's going to be your friend with this, in that there are some, like the IRS has, certain indications. There's some things, Nancy did touch upon this last week, where, you have like your tax returns or things like that. And that's one of those indefinitely. You want to, here's the challenge. We want to reduce the clutter, but we want to err on the side of caution in terms of making sure that we have what we need. So when it comes down to things that are critical documents, identification documents, things like that, that's obviously forever. When it comes to tax documents and things of that nature, I would say that's nearly forever. Then there's going to be a sliding scale. My recommendation is usually find out the general scope. There's the 7 to 10 years for certain things. Find out that area, and then really think about that 80-20 again. The 20% there, that's probably those critical documents. Think about the other things like paperwork that's sent by your insurance for your car insurance. Those are things, or medical insurance. Unless it's a claim, claims are different. Those things rotate out and they sort of expire in and of themselves. The other thing you want to think in terms of is access. I know I'm not giving you specific dates, but I'm giving you things to question and consider. If you look at information that you have in paper that you can access online, then that's something that you can safely release, potentially shred if you need to. But in so many things, so many like medical accounts now, they have access to your lab results and things like that online. So that's going to be a personal preference. Was that enough of an answer for you? Is there anything else specifically?
Nope, that helped. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Boy, this is Nancy. You hit it on the head the other day. So I have been going through boxes of memorabilia stuff. And boy, is that taken time. And, things like newspaper articles where, my son was the basketball star of the night and those kind of things. And it's like, oh my gosh, I clipped them out, but I never put them anywhere. So they were all in a box.
Yeah.
So it's been, but you're right. It's just eating up my time because I'm going through reading everything and just, oh my gosh. So you made a good point. Kind of put those aside and then take a special time to go through those. And
right. And you're talking about, now that's a combination. That's not only paper clutter, that is emotional.
yes.
That is, and so now, and last week you made a great point about the emotional clutter and the idea that, many times we're keeping it because it proves we were there, and it's a reminder. And there's a challenge between keeping certain memorabilia because it brings us joy to remember that, versus having things that we feel obligated that we need to keep. So,
Right.
and yeah, that's a case of decisions that are going to be much heavier for you than maybe, do I really need that top that looks like, a different era came back, and that's just really not me anymore. You know what I mean? Those are different decisions for sure.
Or the third spatula.
Or the third spatula. See me, I'm quite the foodie, so I kind of, but you do have to think, what can I get away with? And how much, do I really need to use? And the smaller the group of things that you have, the easier it is to take it out, put it back, give it a quick wash, and keep that loop going. So yeah, the third
Right.
spatula.
So there is a question from Roxanne. She says, how do we part with things with emotional attachment?
So it's going to depend upon what the emotional attachment is. I'll go through my Rolodex of things that I've done with various clients. If you are emotional on behalf of someone like a child who's growing up and you're not sure what they're going to want, and you're remembering what they've gone through, first of all, if you are not sure, then it is a keep. I'm never going to say to you, let go of something when you're not ready to let go of it. But think about what each of those things represents. Think about maybe using the L in the limit, of the simple system, of having a particular container of a certain size, maybe a pretty basket or something like that, where you say, this is going to be my keepsakes. That's actually what I did for my children. I have a little selection of like the absolute favorite book. It's like what I call a sample size. So it sort of represents, along with photos, some of the things that we remembered and we captured from their childhood. In terms of what you think they may want someday, Nancy mentioned this last week. I thought this was so good, where, so often that's something that they can't answer now. And so you need to think long and hard if you want to use the real estate that you have to keep something hypothetically that they may not even be able to use. And I saw this happen with my own mom, who kept everything. Maybe that's why I'm in the business I'm in. I'm not sure, but she kept everything. And I know why she did it. It came from such a wonderful place in her heart. But then there were things that were like crumbling and falling apart that I couldn't keep. And it also became a great burden for me. When it comes to the loss of someone, again, I think you are looking to the items to see what they represent. They represent memories. Do you have other ways to access those memories, other ways to capture and appreciate? There are some select things that you can have that you can take out and use and honor. Every time I use the china that came from my mom's, I think of her. It's something that I use and I can honor. Engaging other people in the process can be really helpful. If you have others who might appreciate something where you're like, you use china as an example, too much china, but it's very special to the family. Maybe there are cousins or maybe there are other extended family members who might appreciate pieces of it. And so you know that it can still be used. And another way, and this was particularly helpful for me with a lot of my mom's stuff, was knowing when I could bless someone else. Something that maybe wasn't even like as emotional for me. It was emotional because it was hers, but not that I necessarily wanted to keep it. And I would find other people who could really use it and give it to them specifically, knowing they could use it, and that helped a great deal. Does some of that help?
Those are great answers, Lisa. Very
Thank
much so. Because like I said last week in my presentation, I think sentimental attachment is one of the toughest ones to declutter.
Yeah. It absolutely is, and I can understand it completely. And that is often why it's the last thing that you want to tackle. And sometimes it's reducing, and that's why I talked about doing this process repeatedly and peeling back the layers of the onion. My mom has been gone since Christmas 2011, and it took me many, many times, and even many times while doing this professionally and knowing these tools, even more than most, it took me multiple times to go through her things. And there are even some things that I still kept that I'm not really sure. You just have to go with it. Sometimes the heart needs what the heart needs. So.
Right. And like I said last week, not everything is clutter.
Exactly.
It's a personal decision. I mean, there's clutter and then there's clutter. But I think
Yeah.
that's something that people have to recognize as what's important to you. And that's kind of where the Marie Kondo, does it spark joy? Does it bring you something pleasure? Is it something that's really important to you? Then it's not necessarily clutter. So not everything needs to, like, you said, not everything has to go. And like I said last week, it's not about, psychologically, it's not about having to get rid of things. It's about deciding what you want to keep.
Yeah, exactly. And so given that, the other thing too, that's the brilliance of this, having all these different categories, is if you have things on the emotional side that are important or you're still struggling with and you want to keep longer, you have the opportunity most times to look at a different category and declutter further. In a different direction, I'll give the example of a number of clients I've had who are bibliophiles, and I am one as well. So books. Well, if that's what's important, yes, if that's what's important, then you find other things to declutter. Maybe your kitchen's a bit more minimal. Maybe, you have less furniture in your living room and you have more bookshelves. It's what it is. It's you're surrounding yourself with what matters to you. Now, you can still take a good critical look at the collection and ask these questions. Does it serve the purpose? Am I honoring it? But sometimes having books as a background just makes you feel good and energizes you and makes you show up differently. And if that's the case, it's not clutter. At least not to you.
Okay, anybody else got comments, questions? This is when we're doing our conversation.
Thank you for allowing me to keep my books.
Yay. You are very welcome.
Does I'm curious to know, like, do people find that they have difficulty with other people in the household wanting to hang on to things when you want to let go? Like, sometimes there's people who are neatniks and there's other people who like keep everything. And I know that that can be a struggle. Like I said last week, I had this woman who said, how do I declutter a husband?
Oh, you know what else you mentioned last week that it's so important to bring up is how I always talk about thresholds in terms of energy, but our clutter thresholds are different as well, and we may live with people. I know a friend of mine who we worked to redo her pantry, and it was fabulous. And as we were considering the pantry, considering the kitchen, the counters, the space, how everything would work together, I came to realize she was there's nothing on my counters. Do not put a thing on my counters. And I was like, really? And I'm very much about decluttering, and I'm totally okay with having certain things right on the counter from a productivity standpoint, having a collection of like utensils and things. So it's very interesting. We all have different thresholds for that. So that's another thing to consider.
Okay. Anybody else?
Any more comments in the chat?
I don't see. Some people said I missed this from the beginning, but will the recording be available? I think so. I mean, I did record it, but it's up to Lisa if she wants to share it or not.
Yeah, we can share it. That's no problem.
Okay. Yep, I'll send the recording to you folks who have been on the call. Okay, anything else? So that was kind of interesting to do the polls. And I still would like to know more about what the others. I was surprised nobody had garage or attic down. That sometimes the garage is a big one for a lot of people. That kind of is a place where all the extras end up. And like you said, people can't park their cars in there.
I wonder if that's certain zones though, because I know for me, office is like my entire focus. By the way, I walked my own talk today, and I did another round of decluttering in my office space, and what a huge difference. I felt like I showed up differently even tonight, showed up differently for my clients today, just with that feeling of lightness, of even looking around my space as I'm working at my desk and feeling that difference. But I know for me, the garage is not my domain around here, so it's off my radar. And right now, my focus is, doing these workshops and connecting with people online and starting a podcast and all kinds of different things. So like for me, the office space is the priority. And I guess maybe a bunch of us are inside now more.
Right. And I think you're right. It's sometimes it's what's in your face.
Yeah, literally.
But even if people start small, like I said last week, sometimes it's even like, boy, and another one too is like going through your pantry. Now that it's difficult to go to the grocery store shopping, shop out of your pantry. Or your cupboards and think about, we so often buy stuff and you just throw it in the front, and then, all these items are in the back and their, expiration dates are going out, or you forget you even have what's in there. So it's, right now it's kind of a good time to go through those kind of things too. So shop out of your pantry and your cupboards and use up foods that might be expiring.
Yeah, and that's a good way to, like, from a practical standpoint, to declutter by using the stuff up, pulling the stuff current. And I have a great tip for you. You can grab certain pantry items, or you grab something you're like, what do I do with this? Take whatever it is you grabbed, put it in Google.
And you'll find it.
Promise you, recipes will come up for that ingredient. Or if you're like, I have 3 things. I have a can of beans, cream cheese, and I'm just being very random, but plug those in, and I promise you, somewhere on the interweb, somebody has a recipe for it, probably in the Instant Pot. I have done a tremendous amount with.
Oh, I love my Instapot. Yeah.
Right?
So a couple questions. Is there any place we can donate books or clothes or household goods now? Ooh.
I think there may still be those drop boxes around that allow for clothes. I don't know if they're full, mind you.
Right.
So that would be one thing. Household items is going to be in question. I'm not really sure because there's so many restrictions right now. The thing about books that I'm curious about is if there's any kind of drop box at the library. I'm still getting used to some of the things around here just because I'm relatively new to the area. I know at one of the former libraries that I used to go to, they had a drop box outside that you could put donated books. And that also might be something you can check in some of your local like Facebook groups and ask, because this also might be worth a little bit of a drive, even if it's not the nearest library to you. There might be a library, 30 minutes away or whatever, just to take a little drive and donate the books there. So that's what I would look for.
Yeah, it's really tough right now, given the social distancing and the sanitation of everything. I think,
Yeah.
probably just like you said, making sure that you box things up and create a spot where you can store them temporarily. And as soon as everything breaks loose,
Yeah.
the army is going to be overrun, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. There are going to be so many things people will be ready to donate, but yeah, getting it out of your main area and shifting it around will at least help you temporarily.
So there's another question. Sandra says, I agree, my garage is not used because of stuff.
Okay.
So, and I know, for example, like my daughter lives in Virginia and they don't have a basement there.
Mhm.
They don't have cellars like we do in upstate New York. We have basements and they don't have that. So their garage becomes their basement, their storage area, so,
Right.
but they don't park their cars in the garage.
Well, and again, they're dealing with what I call, the limit of the container. Their container is different because they don't have
Right.
the basement area.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Well, anybody have anything else? I would certainly want to thank you, Lisa, for a phenomenal, once again, presentation. I thank you so much. And I gotta move my video here. I really want to thank you so much, and always appreciate your outlook and your inspiration. She is the owner of Productivity. What's it called?
Positively productive.
Yes, thank you. I had a
It's productivity, it's positive, it's something. Yeah.
It's all good, whatever it is. It's all good.
Exactly.
So, good. Thank you so much. She says, I feel inspired. Great.
Yay.
Hope. So I just want to also do a little commercial because, this is a whole new world out there. Cooperative Extension, we are doing several of these Zoom meetings going forward because it's real hard for us to do any in-person with social distancing now. So we have some more estate planning workshops coming up with the attorney. And then next Thursday and the following Thursday, Lisa's joining us again, and we are going to be doing a program on creating a vision board. I have done this with Lisa in person, and it was fun and very inspiring, very motivational. So if you'd like to join us, please register. It's going to be next Thursday evening. I think that's the 23rd at 7 o'clock. So we'd love to have y'all come back. Okay, any final notes, Lisa?
You can do this. And if you don't feel like you're ready, it's also okay. I've recently been certified in stress management, and it's so important to me. Right now, the number one priority that we have is to take care of our stress levels, which sometimes seem obvious and sometimes they don't, but we're all collectively feeling it. We need to stick together, which is why Nancy and I are doing this, and I'm happy to be here. And decluttering is a way to lower your stress. So that's why we're talking about it. And sometimes it takes just a little push to get it and do a small bit. That's why we're encouraging it. But whatever you can do, it's good. So you got this.
Thank you. I agree. She's right on the nose, right on the nose. And, you know, yes, I think that's so important. And I was listening to the news tonight where they were talking about mental health issues really being numbers increasing in that area because of stress. So your stress management is going to be more important than ever, Lisa. So kudos that you got certified in that. So, all righty. Okay, well, I will try and send out the link to this recording to everybody. Again, this is new for me, so hopefully I can pull that off. Thank you for your patience tonight with my poll and trying to get things around, but we appreciate you doing this and being flexible. And again, thank you to Lisa for a great presentation. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home.
Thank you. Great job. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody. I'm still on. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so Jesse and MS, are you signing out? There they go. Okay, great. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. All right. So this is recording. I don't know how do I stop recording?
Right at the bottom where you're recording, you should be able to hit a button like to stop or pause it.
Let me see. Oh, stop.